Hello again, everyone. I'm Tony Hughes, a resident architect with HashiCorp, and I've been partnering with Zurich for the last 9 months, and I have the pleasure of introducing Eamonn Carey.
Thanks, Tony. So I'm Eamonn Carey. I'm head of cloud engineering at Zurich Insurance. So we've been working with Tony, or Tony's been working with us, helping us with our Terraform adoption, or our Terraform cloud adoption, I should say, and helping us use it to accelerate everything we're doing. So I'll run through the first 20 minutes or so, and I think Tony will go through the more technical bit at the end. So, cool. So without any further ado, so you're going to hear a few key themes or a few key words throughout this. I know it's a deck about acceleration, but you're going to hear me talk about collaboration, about partnership, about empowerment, and they'll run through the deck all the way through, and that's quite on purpose, even though it's a deck about acceleration. I didn't want to start with a problem statement because I want to see it as an opportunity rather than a problem statement. So one of the first things we have to solve is how we automate everything. So we have a host of legacy systems that we need to migrate into cloud. So we have a very ambitious program at the moment to migrate a bunch of applications, hundreds of applications into public cloud. So we have to automate everything that we bring in, and a lot of those are legacy systems. There's skill gaps in the teams that are managing those applications at the moment. They're not necessarily familiar with infrastructure as code or Ansible or Terraform or any of those tools, and we have to address that as we go along as well. Then there's the fear of the unknown by these teams as well, and that's both normal and perfectly understandable. We need to be concerned about the security as we automate everything, how we make it secure and compliant. We are an insurance company at the end of the day. Everything we do needs to be secure, needs to be compliant, and we need to protect our customers' data. And there is a cost factor as well. It can be expensive to automate on the way in, but the benefit far outweighs the cost. We want to build a globally consistent landing zone. And that's key for us, because in order for us to do this at scale and do it fast and accelerate, everything has to be consistent. We have to build uniformity into everything we do. And then there is that scale problem. We are trying to do it at scale. We are going to create thousands of AWS accounts and Azure subscriptions. And the only way we can do this at scale is by collaboration with our internal developer teams through inner sourcing. Then we have the reusability piece. By collaborating, we want to create reusable modules that our developer community can use and leverage right throughout the days as well. And then everything has to be secure by design. That's one of the key things. We are an insurance company at the end of the day, so security by design is not just for application code, it's for infrastructure as code as well. And all this should come together to build a transparent compliance or a compliance transparency for our auditors and our regulators and everybody else. So then a little bit about me and my team. I'm here representing the cloud platform team. We are, as Dave was talking about earlier on, we are a platform team. We're not just a platform team, we're a product team. We treat the cloud landing zone as a product, and we want to run it as a product. And we're part of what we call the Cloud Center of Enablement. We used to call ourselves Cloud Center of Excellence. We abandoned that. We don't claim to be excellent anymore. We're here to empower and enable everybody else. So we're still the CCOE, but we are the Cloud Center of Enablement. And as I say, we are a product team. We want to run as a product team. And we might be a little bit conceited in thinking that we are the glue that holds everything together, but there is a little bit of truth in that. If you want to build anything on public cloud, you have to have a symbiotic relationship with us. But we're not alone. Even within the CCOE, we have a couple of other product teams built around database and storage and DB and analytics, and they work very, very closely with us, helping us build the curated services and patterns that I'll talk about a little later on. But outside that, again, we have the other Zurich teams, our security teams, our network teams, our legacy teams. And last but not least, we also have the customer developer teams who are really important to us. And we do work very, very closely with them, and we want them to work even closer with us. So I won't labor this slide, there's a lot on it, but we are very much aware of the task that's ahead of us. In order to be able to build at this scale, and it's a scale that Zurich hasn't really encountered before, we need to have strategic partners. So we've partnered with AWS and we've partnered with Microsoft through Azure, but we've partnered with HashiCorp, which is why we're all here today. And we were really keen on Terraform because it's platform agnostic and because we want a globally consistent landing zone. Having that platform agnostic tool was really, really important to us. But we also have our internal partners, our internal customers, our internal teams, such as the security team and the network team I was talking about. So how do we accelerate our customer and application teams? Well, collaboration and knowledge sharing, I think I've covered off on the partnership bit. But coming out of that, then we want to create reusable modules and create efficiency through reusable modules. So we want to create modules that we will publish to the Terraform Cloud private registry that our customers can come in and pick them up. And I'll talk a little bit more about the curated services and patterns in a bit. So we want to create increased innovation and experimentation. So if we can create reusable modules, it frees up time for increased innovation. So if we do everything right and we build everything once, then measure twice, cut once. I think is the expression. So we want to do it right the first time and free everybody up to innovate. We also then need to build quality into everything we do because we want these to be widely deployed. So we want our customers to come along and adopt these and deploy them widely. So we have to get the quality of this right. We are an insurance company at the end of the day. Everything needs to be secure, everything needs to be compliant, and we have to be able to prove that quality as well. And all this then feeds into the transparency and visibility of everything we want to do. We are heavily audited, we're heavily regulated, we really want to do everything right and be seen to do everything right. And then last but not least, we want to build a community. We want to leverage the Zurich developer community. And if we can build a community and we do everything in full view, our customers are less likely to be impatient with us, are more likely to work with us. And we want to adopt and foster a GitOps way of doing things. So I've mentioned curated services and patterns a couple of times, and I just want to talk a bit about what we're building, why we're building it, and how it's accelerating us. So we're all familiar with how infrastructure as code orchestrates the underlying infrastructure, and that's fine. What we've done is, or what we've tried to do is we've pulled together some Terraform modules together into what we would call a curated service. And a curated service is very much an opinionated version of what a cloud service would look like. So if it was an EC2, it's a very opinionated version of what an EC2 is. It encapsulates our own internal controls and our own internal guardrails and the things that matter to Zurich. And we pull that into a curated service, which we publish into a version-controlled Terraform Cloud private registry, which our customers can then use. But we abstract that even further again, and we would have what we call curated patterns, which pull together one or more curated services. And these are all modules, so they can be consumed from the Terraform Cloud private module registry. But a pattern will pull together, say, an EC2 with a load balancer or an EC2 load balancer and a database in the background. Whatever, really, it just pulls them all together. And it abstracts the complexity even more for our customers. So when they come and consume the module, the higher up that stack you go, the less they need to know. So on a created service for EC2, you'd have to pass in the AMI ID. Now, we would bake our own AMIs, but you need to know the AMI ID to pass into that module. With a created pattern that's calling that module, you only need to tell it you want Linux or you want Windows, and we're taking care of everything else in the background. And this all drives to reduce time and cost for our customers. It also wants to reduce barriers to entry for our customers and reduce the time to innovation, so to how to deliver features to our ultimate customers in the market. But it also accelerates or helps in team empowerment, raise team empowerment. It also raises compliance at the birth of the resources themselves. If we build it right and we get the quality right, everything, the quality goes up. And it ultimately will raise customer sentiment as well. So getting into the weeds a little bit, I'll start with a very familiar story. And this is how we were doing things maybe about a year ago before we started using Terraform Cloud. And this starts with a account request form. So typical way to start, you want to get an AWS account. And you go along, we have a Jira request form where you would go in, you'd fill in the business unit that wants the account, the cost center, the business unit ID, a whole host of things. Very basic form, but it's a request form. It then goes for a manual review. So there's very little automation in that form, so it has to go for manual review to make sure that the data is valid, that it is a correct business unit, that that business unit does own that cost center, and so on. And there's a 2-day SLA on that. So once that's done, then pipeline task kicks off and creates the AD groups that will manage access to this AWS account. Then another pipeline task will kick off, and it will create the AWS account itself. And at that point, then control is passed back to the customer, and they're free to request access to the AD groups through an internal tool we have. All the while, we're waiting for those groups to sync to other tools like Okta and other tools we would have in our tool chain. And once they've requested access to the AD group, it goes for manager approval, which is another required step. And to be honest, I can't ever see us replacing that. And it's very much up to the manager as to how long that can take. It could take minutes, it could take days. And once that's done, then the user gets added to the AD group. But we also pass control back to the customer as well to fill in another form to request a VPC in the account that they just requested, which goes for another manual review, another 2-day SLA, and so on. And after that, then a pipeline task kicks off and they get their VPC. So this, at the best possible scenario, takes about 36 hours. Probably a normal scenario, it takes about 3 days, best case. So assuming everything kicks off immediately and everybody does what they should, it takes 36 hours. And this just gets us one environment. And if you want a dev environment, a test environment, a prod environment, you have to repeat this multiple times. So definitely not efficient. So how did we accelerate that with Terraform? Well, the first thing we did is we adopted Account Factory for Terraform, which is a collaboration between HashiCorp and AWS. And it's ultimately a replacement for Terraform Landing Zone. But one of the key things that Account Factory for Terraform gives us is the ability to parallelize everything we do. So when we request an account, you can request your dev account, your test account, your prod account in one single request, and you can baseline them in one single request. So we changed the request form to be somewhat data-driven. It now calls to authoritative data sources and will get valid data, and customers can go in and pick from pick lists of their business unit ID or cost centers and everything else. So it eliminates a lot of the manual review that had to happen at that point. It will then kick off a pipeline task that will provision the AWS accounts. So not just one account now, it'll provision 2, 3, 4, how many ever accounts the customer requested. It will then kick off another task to baseline those accounts. So this is where we would add our guardrails and our controls and everything else into those accounts. When we're doing it in the old method using control tower, it was subject to a lot of failures and everything else. And it would take about 6 hours to run. This is way more efficient. So we would then map the AD roles the same as we would have before. But at this point, we start using Terraform Cloud, and we provision Azure DevOps resources. So we would provision, and this is something we never did before, but we now create our customer teams a Azure DevOps project with a repo inside, so that once we're finished, they're ready to start building their code, and we will put in the infrastructure as code into that repo for them. At this point, then, we'd also provision the Terraform Cloud teams. We would then provision the Terraform Cloud workspaces, and we would provision the VPC and identity and access management into that account and VPC. So we've gone from what was 3 days to get one account to 45 minutes to get as many accounts as you need to get at that point. So that's a huge improvement. So over the program, that's going to save us about 3,000 days of elapsed time, because by the time we do this for thousands of accounts, that's what it's going to save. And that's just based on a 3-day best case scenario. So how are we using it then to accelerate our compliance and governance? So as the platform product team, we do aspire to be a case study in what is right and what is correct. So we want to be seen to be doing the right thing. So in order for us to be successful, we have to be the center of excellence. There's that excellence word again. So how are we doing this? So we use Checkoff, which is an open source tool for scanning your code to make sure it's compliant with a certain standard. We use the SIS benchmark. So we would have checkoff in our IDEs that would scan the code as we were writing it to make sure that the infrastructure that it's going to build is going to be compliant when it's built. I didn't mean that. So then we have a run task as well that integrates with Bridge Crew from Palo Alto, which also uses checkoff in the background. But when a customer hits apply or does a Terraform apply, a run task will kick off in the background and we'll scan that code again using Bridge Crew and checkoff to make sure that code is going to be compliant. So why do we do this twice? Well, this is putting the verify into trust but verify. So the checkoff in the IDE is very much dependent on developer behavior and them actually using it and reacting to what it's telling them. But you cannot apply code into production without going through that run task that will actually scan that code against that sys benchmark to make sure it is correct. We're starting to use Sentinel policies. We're only starting on the journey, and that's one of the things Tony's helping us with. Is we are very one of the reasons we chose Terraform Cloud or are using Terraform Cloud is we are keen on Sentinel policies. We want to leverage policy as code to build everything we want to build. So that's key to us as well. But we're also using dynamic provider credentials or just-in-time credentials that we were talking about this morning. And at this point, I will pass over to Tony, who's going to get into the weeds a little bit on the technical side of things. So, Tony, I will pass to you.
Thank you, Eamonn. Hello again. Everyone awake? Excellent. Well, I want you to fall asleep because you may have a nightmare of a developer committing credentials to source code or something like that. But fret not, dynamic provider credentials may be able to help with that. So in the context of Zurich and AWS, I know we have a talk on this later, and you may have heard a lot about dynamic credentials, so I'll keep this brief. But in the context of Zurich, we had hard-coded, long-lived credentials, IAM roles, IAM key pairs in this case, sitting in the workspaces, maybe passed off by security teams, maybe deployed by the developers themselves. As you can see, that's high risk. You have high rotations. You have a lot of oversight you have to do there as a security team or a cloud member. Now, with dynamic credentials, we're able to deploy in AWS a OIDC provider, an IAM role, the policy, the trust between them that can specify the project in particular that you want to scope to that and allow to assume that, as well as the workspace itself, and then even down to the plan and apply phase of that workspace run. So I won't belabor this too much, but suffice to say it's helped a lot in that risk. We don't have any more, rotation needs. We don't have to worry about developers asking for these credentials as they get their account. Once they're vended this account through that pipeline, they have automatic access to both Terraform Cloud as well as AWS in their cloud account. So moving on a little bit there, talk about day two management. I know, paradoxically, in a slide about acceleration, going to slow down, think about day two management. And when I onboarded with Zurich, I found that they had a platform team established, empowered, able to make the decisions needed, which is generally an uphill battle. But I was ecstatic from that. However, other teams outside of that weren't considering just how to scale day two management of Terraform Cloud and actually scale to multi-cloud when we go and use this product. So what I proposed, and you'll see here a piece of the pipeline that Eamonn was showing earlier, was a GitOps flow that used VCS-driven Terraform Cloud workspaces to bootstrap Terraform Cloud platform itself. Maybe familiar to some of you guys. The flow that I would recommend there, we had their platform team was familiar with AWS Account Factory for Terraform, utilizing Jinja templates. And so it was an easy walk to go over and deploy those same flows into Terraform Cloud, have them deploy out Terraform Cloud, Terraform HCL itself into these pipelines, have them come in and empower the developers to go and manage these workspaces in day two respects, going in and updating and configuring as they go through source control, shifting that security left to the VCS provider, alleviating the burden on the platform team, which is my goal, to make it scale and have it not be an uphill battle for them. So let's dig into what it would take to build out each of these accounts, all these pieces here. You build out your Azure DevOps resources, the repos, the projects. the teams for Terraform Cloud, the workspaces for them to use, not pictured the AD groups and such, as well as the VPC and IAM. And in this case, we added in dynamic credentials, so they can instantly auth in, have that access that I mentioned before. Each of these BUs that we're talking about, up to thousands of applications at this point, each one would need all of these for each account, multiple dev, test, and prod like you'd expect. So let's dig into a little bit what that would look like just in the GitOps flow in the pipeline here. So we start off with that pipeline task that he mentioned, whether it be a Jira ticket, ServiceNow, various inputs there. We pipe into your Python script, kicking off and building out, populating the Jinja templates, which would then render these HCL files that I'm mentioning here. Now, the beauty of this in my mind is that these are being spit out into configuration repos for each landing zone. So you can go and, as a developer, go and update, I need to update the Terraform version, et cetera. And moving on there, you'll see config to repo here. This triggers, once these files are generated and placed in these repos, you're triggering off these VCS-driven Terraform Cloud workspaces, which allows you to have drift detection and all these other features that you'd like to see from Terraform Cloud for your actual Terraform Cloud configuration itself. So moving on to that, the pipeline tasks wait for it to complete. And then we move on. Let's dig into kind of what the file structure would look like here. So the file structure, again, coming from your pipeline, can spit out in these Jinja templates, again, mimicking what you'd see in the account creation and AWS Account Factory for Terraform, which the platform engineers really liked. We'd spit out and generate these Terraform HCL files, which would then go into your hub repos for each landing zone, separated by environment types. So you have security and isolation and RBAC taken care of at the VCS level. Great on the security teams. They really celebrate on that. So let's dig into my favorite, a little bit of Terraform code itself, a little HCL, just kind of show you what will inevitably change here. So ultimately, I would say Terraform version being the most important, now being 1.5, you may want to upgrade your Terraform version to take advantage of the import feature. One other piece here that I really like that shines is in the sense of I'm an app developer trying to understand, hey, where do I have to go? What VCS repo do I need to configure this workspace, make these changes programmatically through a pull request, and satisfy the platform team, have it filtered to them, not be blocked until that pull request is merged. The source URL, you can press in the top right of your Terraform Cloud workspace, Terraform Enterprise workspace, go to that VCS repo, have your arguments there to configure and change. You may have, again, a developer that needs to change the branch or needs to change the VCS repo to source that. And then, again, as we mentioned, Terraform dynamic provider credentials here are as simple as adding 3 variables in your Terraform Cloud workspace for that particular role that you're going to assume. So this is where it really shines. When you need to make these updates to the scale of upwards of 10,000, say, workspaces, it becomes a really great scalable solution. And yeah, I'm really excited that we were able to build this out, and Eamonn's team was able to take this on. I'm excited that they enjoyed it. And on that, let me bring back Eamonn Carey to close this out.
Cheers. Thanks, Tony. So that's gone down really well with our developer community, really well. So I'm going to close on this slide, and I'm not going to labor it too much, but it's pulling together a lot of what we've already discussed. So it just pulls together, say, how we're leveraging Terraform Cloud to accelerate our cloud adoption, how it's bringing consistency to everything we do through how we use versioning, how we use state management, how we use policy enforcement, and how we're doing config as code and many other things. But it's also bringing together the abstraction we're trying to do by making it easier for our developer community to start building applications, and how we're abstracting that through reusable modules and our curated services and patterns. The way it is at the moment, they can get an account within 45 minutes, and after using the curated services and patterns, they can have the code in their project repo, and they can start building modules or building services through the created services and have something up and running within 2 hours, from nothing to something running in 2 hours, which is pretty good. But we're also then doing the security and compliance piece and how we're leveraging Terraform Cloud to enhance our overall security posture through policy as code, through run tasks, through everything else. The only way we can actually accelerate and get this to work. Tools is one thing, but we have to leverage the developer community within Zurich. So through partnership and collaboration, it's the foundation of everything we do here. So partnering with our ISPs, partnering with HashiCorp, it's the way this works. So I believe the word Hashi means bridge in Japanese. So I would like to think that Terraform Cloud is acting as a bridge between all this and helping pull all this together. So that's it, I think. So thank you very much. If you see either of us around, feel free to ask questions. And we'll be around for the afternoon. But yeah, thank you very much.